Something a little tonight. I'm going to be working on my Honda. Got a 1990 Honda Hawk GT, and ever since I bought it, the clutch has been kind of funny. When you pull the clutch in, it doesn't completely disengage the engine, and it's difficult, it's almost impossible to get it into neutral because everything's still turning, and it just doesn't feel quite right. And then a couple of weeks ago, I went to ride it after it sat for quite a while, and the bike would not disengage the clutch at all. I mean, I'd start the bike and I'd drop it in gear, and the bike would just lunge forward and stall, even with the clutch pulled completely in. So we're going to pull the clutch apart and see what's going on. It's everything I do on this bike is a pain in the neck to work on. So we'll see how this is. But clutch is under here, and this first thing we got to do is get the rear cylinder exhaust, at least the rear cylinder exhaust, off. I think I can get everything else apart with the front exhaust in place, but the first step is going to get this pipe off. So I'll have at it and get back with you when I have it off. Alright, I've got the exhaust down. I did have to drop the front pipe, and I did have to loosen. I took out the two bolts that hold the main can on. The muffler on this thing is quite huge. The actual tailpipe, I don't think it's the muffler. I think the main muffler media is in there. There's a large box in there. I don't think it's a catalytic converter, not from 1990. So now we've got access to our clutch cover. One thing I noticed, that the clutch cable is installed incorrectly. These two jam nuts, they're actually supposed to be on either side of this retaining clip here. So the clutch cable was put back incorrectly, and then the gasket appears as though it's new, relatively new, so someone's been in there before. So I'm going to take all this off and we'll see what's inside. So we're at a critical point here. I've got all the bolts out of the clutch cover. I've got the cable off, and of course you saw I got the exhaust down, took the oil dipstick out. This thing is on here really solid. I've tried the infamous rubber hammer. That did nothing. I even put the clutch cable back on, thinking that I could use the clutch springs and the clutch force to push the cover off with all the bolts out, and that didn't work. So now I'm resorting to a crowbar method. So I figured I'd film this, and we'll see how this goes here. Can you see that? Looks good there. So Honda was nice enough to put a little tab here. Perhaps they intended this tab to be, nope. And we certainly don't want to scratch the engine. Nope, what's going on here? This is, nope, that's not going to work, is it? I'll show you this tab. So here's this tab here that I'm trying to pry on, and I don't know how else to approach this. There's no other tabs on here, and I certainly don't want to go at it with a screwdriver. Well, I'll just keep trying. I mean, this should work. Maybe. That should work right there. Doesn't have enough bite on it. There we go. That worked. Just had to get the right bite on it. Now I'm going to take the screw back out that I put in. I put the screw back in so that I could try it using the clutch force. Get that out of there. And, yep, we got oil coming out of here. Ooh, quite a bit of oil. I just changed the oil in this, and I didn't want to drain it all again. And I thought I could get away with leaving the bike on the side stand so that all the oil would drain one direction, but still got quite a bit of oil there. So here's our inside of our clutch cover. It's amazing how clean it is. The dirtiest part there is where my finger just went in to yank this off, but this thing is just spotless, the inside of the engine. I've adjusted the valves on this engine, and it's amazing to me how spotless it is considering its age. So there's our clutch mechanism. When we pull on the clutch, this guy rotates and pushes this out and then activates the clutch. So put this off to the side here. Now we're going to be, here are our clutch plates and our friction discs. We're going to be disassembling this and taking these plates out and figuring out why this thing is not releasing properly. So, all right, let me get some tools and I'll be back. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we have to pull off these 4 screws to get the pressure plate and the springs off. So let's see if we can make that happen. Okay, so we're going to set this off to the side, pull our springs out, and we have to get this 27mm nut off, and it's supposed to be staked onto the crankshaft, and it's obviously no longer staked. Somebody has already had that off, did not put a new nut on, and did not stake it back down. So we'll have to figure out what to do when we reassemble, but for now I just need to get that off. So let me get some tools. Alright, we got a little issue here. So here's our 27mm nut and our 27mm socket, and when I go to turn to loosen the socket, our engine is turning and not the transmission. So, actually no, sorry. What's turning here? So no, the engine's not turning. It's just the portion, I guess it's the input shaft to the transmission is turning and not the engine. So we need to somehow lock this in place so that we can get this nut off. So what I'm going to do is put the springs back in place without the pressure plate and lock this mechanism together so we can get this nut off. So stand by. Alright, so what I've done here, I've put the springs back in, and I've got some washers. They're various sizes because I didn't have 4 matching. But I screwed these bolts down so that we have all of our spring tension locking the input shaft of the transmission to the engine. So now this will not turn when I try to loosen this. Oh, but of course, wouldn't you know it, my washers are too big and I can't get my socket in here. Okay, let's try this again. Alright, here we are again with more reasonably sized washers. Now this time we should be able to get, yes, look at that. Okay, now that we've got everything locked together, this whole assembly is going to turn the engine. And let's see if the engine offers enough compression forces to break this loose. And if not, we're going to do a little trick. Let's see. No, I didn't think so. So our engine's turning. So what we're going to do is we're going to, this is our crankshaft, our 2 ignition pickup coils for each cylinder, our little star exciter wheel, and then our clutch gear. So I'm going to shove this rag between these two gears, and hopefully that'll jam it up with enough so that I can get enough force on this thing. I'm going to need a bigger boat. Yeah. So I'm going to ditch this guy because the handle's too big. I'm going with the old Craftsman and our cheetah bar. Jeez Louise. And you can see what's happening. The clutch is still turning. We're developing more torque than the engine produces. And we're overcoming the tension on those springs. I'm going to try and give it a quick shot. Nope. We may have to revert to the impact gun. So stand by, let me get that out. Alright, we're back with the bigger boat. Much bigger boat. Impact gun. And that's concerning. There we go. I just wanted to be a little bit conservative with that because we got aluminum bits. You can see the somebody really hacked that up. That's where it was staked down, and it looks like they just cut it off or really hacked it trying to get it off. And I'm not sure I want to reuse that. We'll see. And got a bunch of shims here. Got to remember the way they go back together. Like so. Okay, I'm going to undo these 4, and then the whole assembly should come apart. Where'd my 10mm go? Oh, there it is. Let's see, can you see? Put you like this, maybe. There we go. Alright. So here comes clutch basket, which is splined onto there, and that looks to be in good shape. No issues there. Now we've got some type of spring ring. It's concave, pressing on that. And then our first friction disc. I'm going to take these all out as a stack. So we got our friction disc and our plate, and then friction disc plate, so forth and so on. Now on my new ones, one of them is different than the others, and I'm not sure if that goes in the back or in the front. So there's the whole stack. I'm going to take this up on the bench and look at it closer and see if I can figure out what's going on here. But the basket is fine. Sometimes these get scored up, but those are in good shape. So I don't see a root cause here yet. Alright, let's go in the kitchen. Alright, here we are in my favorite place to work, the kitchen. And we've got our clutch plates and friction discs here. These don't look like OEM Honda, these look like aftermarket. And there appears to be plenty of meat left on them. So I don't know why is this clutch acting up. So this is, remember I said earlier that one of the friction plates is different than the others. This is the one, it's the outer one. It's actually thinner. And it's thinner to accommodate that spring, the convex spring that I took out of there. I mean, I was expecting to find one of these broken, or a chunk of the friction disc had come up dislodged, but I'm not finding anything wrong at all. Nope. What's that? There's a strange score mark. Oh no, that's where it was manufactured. That's interesting. So when they put the friction disc on there, they have to cut striations in it for the oil to come out. And when the machine cut the striations, it just cut right across the aluminum tab. Probably not a good sign. It's very strange. I'm not finding anything wrong. This is kind of disturbing. I don't know. I guess I'll just put it back together with the new parts and pieces and see what happens. Alright, I'll just clean this all up and get our new parts out here. So I've got my got 7 new OEM Honda clutch plates. And I've got the new friction discs as well, also OEM Honda. The friction material is substantially different than what was in there. And another observation is the cuts that are between the blocks of friction material are much wider than they are here and much more frequent. I don't know if you can see that. And what I think is happening is there's actually too much surface area here, and it's causing the clutch plates to all stick together. Here, because you've got a lot more space for the oil and the residual dust particles that come off of these things to go, I think this is a much better design. Also, if you look at the very ends, these things have a notch in them, and these do not. So these will actually float better in the basket. So I'm just going to go ahead and reassemble all of this. Oh, the other thing I noticed is this is the springs. These are the springs that were in there, and I'm not sure that this is OEM Honda. This is 2 of the OEM Honda ones. So I think the springs also may have been playing a factor in that. So I'm just going to reassemble this. I may not put the cover on. I've got a nice new reusable gasket here rather than the paper ones which you have to scrape off. But I may not put it back together because of that retaining nut where they unstaked it. They kind of chewed it up and there's no way to stake it again, and I'd be nervous of that thing coming loose. So I'll probably order one of those. So I'm just going to go ahead and reassemble, and then we'll get back together once I have the parts.